All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on the justice system. We're going to go behind the scenes to see how a final court decision actually gets made, from that secret debate all the way to a final judgment that can change everything. So, let's dive in.
You've seen it a million times in movies, right? The lawyers finish their arguments, the judge bangs the gavel, but what happens next? What goes on behind those closed doors when judges have to make their final decision? Well, that's what we're here to unpack.
Okay, so before we get into the how, we need to talk about the what. What exactly is a judicial ruling? Because it's a lot more than just a simple you win or you lose. It's this really formal, structured thing with its own almost sacred set of rules.
So, at its core, a ruling is a written decision, but it's not just any decision. It has to be about a specific case, and it has to be issued by someone who actually has the legal power to do so, a judge or court. This isn't just someone's opinion, This is the official voice of the law speak. And this is wild. Every single ruling, by law, has to start with these exact words. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. That's not just a suggestion or a tradition. It's a requirement. It really sets the tone, right? It speaks to the incredible weight and responsibility of what's about to be decided.
This brings us to a really crucial idea. A court's power is super precise. Think of it like this. They have to address every single request or defense that's put in front of them. But, and this is key, they can't go beyond that. They can't rule on something that wasn't asked for. So a judge can't just decide to award extra damages if nobody requested them. Their lane is very clearly defined.
Okay, so now we know what a ruling is, but how does it come to be? How is it actually born? Well, the process is this really fascinating mix of intense secrecy, teamwork, and some super strict rules.
It basically breaks down into 4 main steps. First, there's the secret deliberation. Then comes the drafting and signing of the actual document. After that, they need a majority vote. And finally, it's all made official with a public announcement. Every single one of these steps is mandatory. You mess one up, and the whole ruling could be thrown out.
And when we say secret, we mean secret. The deliberations are completely locked down. Only the judges who actually heard the case can be in that room. They can't talk about it with anyone else. They can't bring in new evidence. And if that secrecy is broken, if someone leaks what was discussed, the entire ruling becomes null and void. That's how serious it is.
Now check this out. This really shows you how formal the system is. Let's say a judge participates in the deliberation and they sign the draft of the ruling. Their vote is now locked in. So even if that judge were to pass away or become too ill to continue, as long as they signed that draft, the ruling is still valid. It's the signature that counts, period.
Okay, so once the ruling is read out loud in court, a clock starts. The court then has a maximum of 30 days to get that final, signed, official copy on file. This is what creates the permanent official record of the decision.
So, the judgment is announced, it's filed, now what? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is when the ruling gets its real power to bring a case to a close, or, in some situations, to trigger immediate action.
And this leads to one of the most powerful ideas in the entire legal world. It's called res judicata, which is just a fancy Latin way of saying the thing has been judged. What it means is, once there's a final ruling, the matter is settled. It's over. The same two parties can't just start a new lawsuit over the exact same issue. It's all about providing finality so people aren't stuck in court forever.
But, this standard process, it can take a while. It's designed to be thorough. But what happens when justice just can't wait? What about those cases where any delay could cause serious, irreversible harm? Well, the system has a plan for that too. There are basically 2 kinds of legal fast lanes. On one hand, you've got urgent justice. This is for time-sensitive civil or commercial stuff, where you need to prevent some kind of major damage from happening. Then, for even more pressing situations, you have orders on petitions. These are for super quick precautionary measures, and they can sometimes be issued so fast that the other party isn't even there to argue their side yet.
And these things move at lightning speed. An urgent ruling can come down in as little as 24 hours. And if you want to appeal it, you've only got 8 days. Those emergency orders are even tighter. They expire in 20 days if they're not acted on. We're talking about justice on a seriously accelerated clock.
But look, no system is perfect, right? So for our last section, let's talk about what happens when things aren't quite right. What if there's a mistake in the final ruling? And also, who ends up paying for all of this?
Even after a ruling is final, there are ways to fix things. If it's a straightforward error, like a typo or a math mistake, the court can just go in and correct it. No big fuss. If the problem is that the ruling is kind of vague or confusing, the parties can ask the court to interpret its own words, to clarify what it meant. The key thing here is that neither of these reopens the whole case. It's just about making sure the original decision is accurate and clear.
Which brings us to the big, practical question at the end of every lawsuit. This whole process, the hearings, the experts, the paperwork, it all costs money. So, who pays for it? Well, as a general rule, the party that loses the case gets ordered to pay the court costs. And court costs is a much bigger category than you might think. It's not just a filing fee. We're talking about paying for expert witnesses, any travel expenses the court had, and yep, even the lawyer's fees for the person who won.
But, and this is a really important but, that's not the same thing as damages. Court costs are just to cover the expenses of running the lawsuit. Any money awarded to compensate the winner for their loss, or any fines meant to punish the loser, that's a whole separate thing, ordered on top of the costs.
So there you have it, the whole life cycle of a ruling. From that top-secret deliberation all the way to a final, binding judgment, with built-in fast tracks and ways to fix mistakes, it's a system that is meticulously designed for one thing: finality. But it does leave you wondering, doesn't it? Even with a process this precise, with all these rules and safeguards, can it ever guarantee perfect justice? That's a big question to chew on.